The Apex Club from Rainier Arms brings you this episode of the QA. Hey guys, my name is Dave Tim. Thank you very much for checking out this episode of the QA. It is the end of the month, which means it's QA time. It is the April 2019 edition of the QA. And as always, if you want to see your questions get to the show, the best way for you to do that is to email us. And you can email us at the email address shown there. It is theqa@gunsandtactics.com. Send us an email. Otherwise, you can also message us on our social media platforms. You can leave comments or whatever, but the best way to make sure they get to the inbox is to use the email address. That makes it easiest for me to make sure I get your questions. We're excited. We had 6 questions, and we're just going to get right to it. First question is from Steven, and Steven actually sent a video which I'll try to edit in right about now, but it's basically he's having a slight issue with his AR. The action is quite stiff. It's hard to rack the bolt back. The rifle still cycles for the most part. I've cleaned it thoroughly, and it cycles fine, but it seems to be much more difficult to rack than it should be. I've attached a video, and yeah, looking at your video, it does seem like there's some extra friction or extra force required. So here's the thing. It's tough to diagnose guns over the internet, even with a video provided, which I do appreciate, by the way. But what I would do is start to take a look at a few things. Number one, look on your bolt carrier and see if you have any friction or wear marks on the bottom back of the carrier. And then also look inside the receiver extension, aka the buffer tube, to see if there's any wear marks in there. You'd be surprised how many receiver extensions, tubes, and I can't tell in the resolution of the video if it was a brace or a stock or not, but sometimes those tubes can be undersized, out of alignment, bent, whatever, and it basically, you know, you have the carrier moving like this, but the tube is bent one way or the other, or cockeyed, whatever you want to call it, and it's causing friction or binding. And that can be quite common. It also could be a lower that has something out of spec. It's causing something to be up too high. It's causing, you know, the alignment to be an issue. Like I said, it's really tough to diagnose without having the gun in person, but those are the things that I would start with. I used to do tech support for a decent sized rifle company. We used to sell uppers, and honestly, that was one of the most common tech support items, was the upper receiver, because we couldn't control the customer's lower receiver. And a lot of people think that if it's an upper issue, cycling, whatever, it's just containing to the upper. The reality is the lower can have just as much to do with it as well. So that's what I would start to look at. And then if that doesn't solve your issues, if you don't see that wear marks or whatever, maybe try it on another known good lower. Now again, I don't know what barrel length, so obviously if you're building a pistol, only put it on another pistol lower. Don't commit NFA violations, all that other stuff. But try to diagnose as much as you can by swapping out known parts at a time and then kind of moving forward. So great question. And maybe we'll do a AR diagnosing video in the future. I'm not sure. I guess it just kind of depends on what we'll come up with. So, all right, next question is, what are your thoughts of running a suppressor wet? Worth the hassle? What should you pack it with? This one is from Tommy. Personally, I don't run any of my suppressors wet. A lot of the solutions that people use, and I've heard of people trying everything from Vaseline to other petroleum type jellies, ultrasonic viewing gel. I can't remember what the technical term is, but basically the gel that you would put on a abdomen for an ultrasonic, or ultrasound, not ultrasonic, ultrasound gel was another common thing. Welding gel is another common one. Here's the thing. The reason why you'd pack it is it's to eliminate the oxygen in the suppressor for the first round pop. A lot of suppressors, your first round has that first round pop because it's burning up all the oxygen in the suppressor. So that first round is going to be a little louder than the second, third, fourth shots. So by packing it full of gel or other solution, we are voiding it of that oxygen, so therefore you eliminate that. The reality is it's kind of a pain. It gets everywhere. It's messy. You're having to deal with it. I personally don't think it's worth the hassle. Good modern suppressors don't really need it. Yes, there is a first round pop, you know, but I don't find it that big of a deal. I mean, you're still shooting a firearm, and I just don't think it's that big of a deal. So I wouldn't bother with it personally. Rimfire, centerfire suppressors, whatever it might be, I just don't think it's worth the hassle or the mess or having to deal with it, carrying it around with you, whatever. And the difference between the first round, where it burns the oxygen, and then once the oxygen is all gone because that explosion in essence burned it all up, the second rounds, it's not big enough for me to be like, man, I really wish I had some gel or whatever to pack full of my suppressor. So I personally don't do it. All right, next question is from Dustin. In your AR cleaning video, which if you haven't seen, I'll put a link card right up here, depending on which platform you're watching it. If you're watching it on YouTube, you mentioned oil running into the receiver extension during storage. Made me think, should we be storing rifles horizontally or even muzzle end down? Yes, that's actually not a bad way to do it. I know of a few police departments and things like that who actually store muzzle down, so that way if there is any extra lube, it kind of runs its way down. Now the downside with that is it could get into the chamber, and we generally don't lubricate the chamber because it could cause feeding issues. We don't want to, get around stuck in there, and then that lube heats up and gums up or whatever. So a proper amount of lube. Now I generally err on a little bit extra lube on an AR because in my opinion a wet gun will always run versus a dry gun may not. But it's not a bad idea to look at storing it that way, or just simply if you're going to store them up and down or even horizontal. I have some guns that I have to store horizontal in the safe because of room issues. Not a bad deal either that way, but just if you know the gun's been in storage for several months, maybe it's not a bad idea to pop the buffer retainer, wipe that down, get rid of your excess, or if you've been storing it muzzle down, you can run a bore snake through it or whatever, because we don't want excess lube where it shouldn't be. But it's not a bad idea to store them muzzle down. I know a lot of good people who know way more than I do store their guns muzzle down, and it's not that big of a deal. And then we're talking probably not that much lubrication anyway. So before we get to our last two questions, let's give a quick shout out to Rainier Arms. If you guys like buying all the latest and greatest AR, precision rifle, handgun, and even now some shotgun and optic stuff, you need to check out the Apex Club from Rainier Arms. For a low yearly fee of $99, you get free ground shipping on all of your orders, plus you get a discount on all of your orders and exclusive availability. So the coolest, newest stuff you have available first at a discounted price and free ground shipping on all of your orders for a low price of 99 bucks. Kind of like a no-brainer. It's kind of like your favorite primetime membership and your big box wholesale exclusive member only pricing, but all of the cool stuff, plus the great customer service from Rainier Arms. Make sure you check out the Apex Club, and we sincerely thank them for sponsoring this episode of the QA. They make this possible. And they are giving away a cool prize at the end here. All right, here we go. This is from Triple Helixed. 301 days and I'm approved. I'm assuming for a suppressor. I regularly shoot at a range out of state, and I heard some mixed facts on transporting suppressors. Am I required to report it to the ATF or not? And then there was another comment that says you need to speak to an attorney. Here's the thing. SBRs, SBSs, destructive devices, etc., generally require ATF approval. They have to submit this form, and basically it says where you're going, whatever. Suppressors are exempt from that. So as long as the suppressor, so for example, I'm in Minnesota. Suppressors are also legal in South Dakota and Wisconsin. I can go to South Dakota and Wisconsin with my suppressor, no problem, no approval needed. If you are going to a state where they are not allowed, then obviously you should not bring them in there. There is some debate about the Interstate Commerce Act if you're just directly passing through and they're in a non-accessible compartment of the vehicle. But if you had to stop, you have an emergency hotel stay, whatever, be really cautious about that if you're going to non-friendly states for suppressors. However, if you're going to a state that allows a suppressor and you're from a home state that allows suppressors, you're good to go. This is from Grey Wolf 67. Forgive me for asking a seemingly dumb question. Hey, first off, there's no dumb questions. It's okay. We were all new. We all want to learn. So don't worry about asking dumb questions. It's seriously, even simple questions are totally okay with me. And that goes for any of you guys. It's okay to ask questions. Do you need to do anything special to a new AR right out of the box before shooting it for the first time? Obviously, I make sure the barrel's clean and clear of any obstructions and I lube. Other than that, I don't do any cleaning per se until after the first session. Any suggestions would be appreciated. My first thing that I do with any AR is, yes, I take a bore snake or a rod and kind of just wipe down the clean the bore, and then I kind of wipe down all the components. Sometimes they're testified from the factory, sometimes they're not. Sometimes they are packed from the factory with packing oil or packing grease, and I want to make sure I get rid of all that. So I do a cleaning, and then I lube it with a good lube, like ALG's, Go Juice, Slip 2000, etc. A good quality lube of your choice. I do have a lubrication video somewhere. If I do, I'll put a card up here. I want to make sure we lube the AR, make sure it's good and clean. And then I also do a function check, and I do have function checks, a video, and I'll put that up here too if you're watching this on YouTube. Make sure everything's working as it should, and I'll kind of make sure everything's snug and tight. I'll take and check all the torque of anything that has a threaded fastener. I'll make sure the witness marks or staking marks are present, and just kind of make sure the gun looks good from soup to nuts. You'd be surprised how many guns from the factory have loose stuff or not secure stuff or whatever it might be. And then of course I'd secure all my sighting accessories, whatever, with Loctite, witness marks, all that stuff, just to make sure everything's good to go out of the box, and then I'll go to the range and zero my rifle and generally rock on. So that's kind of what I do. Last question is from Daniel, and Daniel wants to know what I thought of the precision rifle match. I just posted this. This is a fast comment, so kudos for you, Daniel, for getting into the wire. I just posted a quick video. I shot my first precision rifle type match. It was a state local match. I shot that actually just a couple days ago, and I had an absolute blast. And he wants to know what I thought of it and if I'll be doing more. I hope to be doing more. I don't know about time. I have travel time is limited, things like that. But man, what a learning experience that was. It was a humbling experience shooting, learning how to read the wind, the mirage, the challenging target sizes, positions. But it was something that I definitely want to do more of. I had a ton of fun, and I highly encourage anyone that's interested in to go out and do it. And you don't need a ton of gear. In fact, there was another guy that was there who shot his very first match. He had a Vortex, I think it was a PST or maybe a Viper scope, and a $400 or so Savage rifle. He betted it himself, and he ended up getting 9th place. He shot 9 points higher than me with his, out of the box, pretty much Savage rifle and scope. And he did awesome. He was really good at reading the wind. He knew his dope, his elevation, and he shot a really good match against some really good shooters. We have a lot of really good shooters in Minnesota, so it doesn't even have to be an arms race or an expensive thing. You can just go out there and shoot. And he did really awesome, kicked my butt. So that, you don't need, kind of taught me that you don't need all the fancy gear, even though I was, fortunate to have some gear to use, some really nice gear. It was ultimately the guy behind the trigger that, made the fate. So what we're giving away this episode is from Rainier Arms, and it is the Ambidextrous 50 and 90 degree safety lever, the Mod 2 safety selector in black, which is a really cool looking part. And I kind of want one for myself to check out. So I have to see if those guys from Rainier Arms will let me play with one too. But this is a really cool part, and they are giving it away. So we had 6 questions total. We're gonna go ahead and generate a random number between 1 and 6. And it is, I don't know if you guys can see that, number 4, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. Triple helixed. It's triple helix. So shoot me an email at the email address shown below. And of course, if you want to get your questions on the show, you can send us an email to that same email address, theqa@gunsandtactics.com. We thank you guys very much for watching. Please hit the subscribe button if you haven't. Share the video. We need to get more subscribers. We want to keep growing. We want to keep doing more videos. We need your help to do that. We need your help to get the word out. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great day.